Goroka's biggest school innovates against space challenges. NSO begins preparations for 2020 census. And church renews call to shut down Detention Centre.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Monday's news. With more than 2,000 students, the West Goroka Primary School is the biggest in the Eastern Highlands. With that number of students comes its own set of challenges. The school does not have enough space for a library, and even if it did, it would not be able to adequately fit all its students into library lessons in a week. Scott White visited one of the older schools in the province to see how the school was doing.
Established in 1968, West Goroka Primary School has 2,300 students. Managing the biggest primary school in the Eastern Highlands is no easy feat. Every year, the demand for education continues to grow, with more pressure put on the school administration to take in more students. For a school this size, building a relatively small library on limited land is not a viable option. Principal Tony Koyanko says even if they had a functional library, they wouldn't be able to fit in everyone adequately for library lessons in any 1 week.
So put in the elementary, which is inside there, and total number has gone to 3,300 students. So put the student into one classroom. Into a library, we have a problem because children...
Over the last 3 years, Mr. Koyanko has been trying another solution: smaller classroom libraries like this one. It's like an entire library with books distributed amongst various classes. Mr. Koyanko says it's a solution that works for them.
Each classroom has their own library, and we appointed one student to be a librarian. And we put the books at the level of understanding, so they can read the book anytime.
The school doesn't have money to buy new books. Principal Koyanko has taken to Facebook to promote what the school is doing and to seek book donations from all over the country and various parts of the world.
Before 2009-10, we had a problem of children not doing well at grade 8 exams. And we found out that there are two things they are not doing. One is they don't speak English, and the other one is they don't read books. That's why we encourage students to read books anytime they want in the classroom.
And it has worked. Nearly all of the books are donated, and every month people call him to collect new donations. Having a bigger library with books would be ideal, but for now this works, and it's being adopted by other schools in the Eastern Highlands. Scott White, National EMTV News.
A total of 200 million Kina will be needed for the 2020 National Population and Housing Census. In preparation, 5 areas in the Kairukuhiri district and the National Capital District participated in a field test organized by the Field Operations Branch of the Population and Social Statistical Division of the National Statistical Office. Michelle Stephen with the details.
Last week Friday, a team from the National Statistical Office carried out a field test at Vabakari village in the Mosby South area to collect data and do evaluation. During the field test, 3 forms were given out to be filled and later collected for evaluation. These 3 forms are the household listing, household record card, and social economic condition study, or SEX. Under the household listing form, the head of the house will be recorded along with the number of people living in the house. The household record card will be given to everyone in the house to fill. It contains information such as the name of the person, his or her relationship to the head of the house, sex, age, and date of birth. The last form will be given to the village councillors to fill with the help of an NSO officer.
In this round of census, we've included the disaster when if natural disaster has occurred in the last 5 years. So that's what we are trying to do. We're just trying to test the form, so when we go back and do an evaluation and see whether, especially the household record card and the sex form works. If it does, then we will have to do it when it comes 2020 census or when we do another test.
The National Statistical Office's Deputy National Statistician Bernard Kiela says all census forms will be uniform across the country, except for people living in non-private dwellings. Mr. Kiela says their forms will be short.
Don't have the normal household characteristics. It's a hotel. You don't have cooking facilities. It's just hotel they live in. So we'll be collecting the names, ages, and maybe the occupation.
The household listing instruments will be tested in these 5 different areas of the southern region before it will be used nationwide to list every single village across the country. Mr. Kiela says at the same time census will be updated.
With the listing exercise, we will have a pre-count of every individual in the country. And every household in the country, we will visit the number of persons in those households, basically information about those individual houses will be recorded.
Mr. Kiela stated that the purpose of NSO is to collect data so the government can deliver developments and make more realistic plans for the country. Mr. Kiela says statistics collected by NSO are not shared with any other organization, making it clear that unlike NID, NSO collects data from the minute a child is born to the oldest person in the village.
NID is different. They collect people that are individuals that 18 and above, and it's more adults at that level, and also they collect information on individuals that they can now record and have them on there and produce ID cards for them.
Mr. Kiela also said NSO tries to distance itself from NID as well as the Electoral Commission during elections. The team's main aim right now is to also bring awareness across to people during their visits so that everyone is aware of what is happening before June 12, 2020. Michelle Stephen, National EMTV News.
The Catholic Archbishop of Mount Hagen, Douglas Young, has repeated calls for the closure of the Manus Detention Centre and more consultation in the health and education sectors. In a statement directed to the new Prime Minister, the Archbishop said as an Australian, his country also had to take responsibility.
Last week, the Catholic Church released a statement highlighting the many points they had been raising with the government under former Prime Minister Peter O'Neill. Among them, the environment, health and education, and the treatment of refugees at the Manus Detention Centre. One of the most senior leaders in the Catholic Church has since reiterated those points. Douglas Young, the Archbishop of Mount Hagen, said the detention centre is part of a mechanism that is mistreating other human beings.
We really have to be more humane and address the issue, and not treat these people as if they are threats or problems, but as human beings who are looking for a better life, and we've actually made their life quite miserable.
Since the reopening of the detention centre, the controversy has gained a lot of attention. Even the Speaker of Parliament, Job Pomat, was questioned over whether he was a beneficiary in the Manus deal. Archbishop Douglas Young says Australia, as a primary beneficiary in the deal, should take responsibility and end the suffering imposed upon the refugees.
As an Australian, I would say I would expect my Australian government to do something about this.
Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Lae.
Papua New Guinea generated over 690 million kina from the tourism sector in 2018. This is according to the International Visitor Survey conducted by the PNG Tourism Promotion Authority and other partner agencies. PNG TPA CEO Jerry Agus says the country has so much potential to grow this industry in the coming years. However, there is still much more work to be done.
Papua New Guinea has huge potential in the coming years to become a major tourism hub. From research conducted by International Finance Corporation, PNG TPA, and the New Zealand Tourism Research Institute, the country received over 94,000 visitors in 2018, which is a 9.5% increase from 2017.
The top 3 sectors benefiting from tourism continue to include accommodation, airfare, food and beverage.
However, while arrivals have grown, the average spend for every trip has decreased, in which safety, security, and infrastructure are still major concerns.
Tours, domestic travel and local transport saw slight decreases in total earning. Again, this could be linked to a higher number of business travelers who have come to PNG for APAC and who did not travel to provinces or spend on tours.
Holiday visitors have increased, which indicates that PNG is closing the gap and getting closer to the global average holiday market of 53% of total visitors, in which Australians remain PNG's highest holiday visitors. Through the data provided from the survey, PNG TPA will continue to help service providers build the industry.
Because the details of the information are very relevant to most of our industry members, especially within the tourism and hospitality sectors. It shows how the tourists are coming into Papua New Guinea. All this detailed information are very useful to the tourism industry members and also other stakeholders.
This data covers international visitors that traveled for the purposes of business, holiday, visiting friends and relatives, sports, and education. However, it did not include cruise visitors or those that are in country for employment purposes. Lilian Sopera Kinea, National MTV News.
You're watching National MTV News. Stay tuned for more of the day's stories after these messages. Welcome back to the news. A former post-Korea journalist, Ramsey Wama, is appealing to colleagues, friends, families, and the general public for financial assistance to receive medical treatment overseas. Mr. Wama was diagnosed with tongue cancer in February this year. Vasina Tayama reports.
Wama's cancer is in its third stage. This means that it has gone past stages 1 and 2 and is at a critical stage. Specialist doctors say a patient has 50-50 chance of living at this stage before it reaches the final stage. Ramsey is currently on medication and looks healthy, but he urgently needs chemotherapy and radiotherapy treatments.
It's like life-threatening for me. So me urgently needing help to assist me or treatment overseas.
However, such specialist treatments are not available in PNG. Many cancer patients have received these treatments overseas, but it is very expensive for an ordinary citizen to travel overseas. Ramsey was referred to a hospital in the Philippines to receive radiotherapy treatment, and according to this hospital, the medical city, the estimated cost for full chemo, surgery and radiotherapy treatments for up to just 8 weeks will cost up to 400,000 Kina. Ramsey admitted he was addicted to chewing betel nut and smoking. As any other Papua New Guinean, he used to chew betel nut at least 10 to 15 times a day. He never knew that he had tongue cancer, and it has gone past the first 2 stages already. All he thought was that his sore tongue was caused by using too much lime when he chewed. He never knew he had tongue cancer until January this year. He approached a doctor friend who physically examined his tongue and advised Ramsey to go to Port Moresby for a medical check when they confirmed it.
So meeting was supposed to continue to go. Kambang no member healing. Normally I'm so meeting him this like so then Kambang no healing so me meet him this like doctor friend from me.
Ramsey is seeking financial help to any kind-hearted people. You can deposit money into his BSP account, Ramsey Wama Medical Appeal, 7016-957-859. He can also be contacted on 70593-170.
Now it me no work, Mr. Nothing to now. Me need him help or kind other Papuan Indians around the country or stuff. At least me need him help or help me at least financially so that we can go overseas look him like treatment.
Vastinata Yama, National EMTV News, Mount Hagen.
Communication through radio can be used to empower people in rural areas as well as give them a voice to speak about the challenges they face. These were the words by the Bishop of the Catholic Diocese in Leh during the launch of the Diocese Digital Studio. The new studio comes 16 years after the station was first established in Leh.
This is Catholic FM's new digital studio in Leh. Because the Catholic Church in Morbe has members both in the urban and rural areas in the province, the station will aid in communicating messages to those outside the city.
As we started this diocese, one of the main problem is communication. We don't know whether what we say here in the town reaches to the people, or we don't know how people are.
Bishop of the Catholic Diocese in Leh, Reverend Rosario Menezes, says as a church, they are mandated not only to evangelize, but to address social issues as well.
We can use these facilities for the empowerment of the people, not to spread fake news, but to spread the news of the gospel, good news.
Before Catholic FM Radio 103.7 was launched, the Catholic Church had only one radio station in the country called the Catholic Radio Network.
Each bishop sought for ways to start their own radio station, and so our first bishop, Bishop Henry, started this radio.
In 2003, under the leadership of Bishop Henry Van Lieshout, the Catholic FM Radio 103.7 was launched.
Each bishop sought for ways to start their own radio station, and so our first bishop, Bishop Henry, started this radio.
The radio station has programs aimed at addressing social issues, including health and education awareness.
Programs that to do with education, which I've spoken about, learn from a distance, and then we have a program to do with the community, how we live in the community, presented in a documentary show called The Insider. The Insider Show is a show in which we just go around and pick up stories and translate them, share them from the perspective of faith.
Lucy Kopana, National EMTV News, Leh.
More than 73,000 grade 10 students across the country will be sitting for the lower secondary written expression exams this Thursday. While announcing this, Education Secretary Dr. Uke Kombra called on education advisors, supervisors, inspectors and principals of all provincial high schools and secondary schools to be vigilant and conscious of security when examination papers reach the school as well as during the actual exam. He urged education authorities and local communities to assist in safeguarding the exam papers to avoid any form of malpractice that may compromise the results this year. The Flexible and Open Distance Education, or FODE, is increasing data sharing and information using a digital platform. Today, all 22 provincial coordinators underwent in-service training on the digital communication system. These include using mobile software like WhatsApp and Gmail to share information between provincial FODE centres and their headquarters in Port Moresby.
The two-day workshop aims at improving the skills of FODE coordinators based in centres outside of Port Moresby.
With this new initiative, partnering with the Telecom PNG and B-Mobile and company like CCI PNG, and we are partnered together so that this introduction of this digital connectivity between all the 22 FODE centres, it's going to be more effective and realistic information on time.
All provincial coordinators received a tablet each and were given the chance to practice using mobile applications like WhatsApp and Gmail to send and receive documents, images or emails.
They are excited with this new initiative. We are hoping that sharing of the realistic data with the FODE headquarters and the department make easy for us. It has been a challenge sharing data and information, delayed information where the service delivery was affected.
As more educational institutions in Papua New Guinea are joining the global community in using internet services, this can be seen as FODE's approach towards transitioning into using the digital platform. Baja Adaya manages the food center in Tari, Hela province.
We did not have a communication system operating, so we communicate with our bosses through writing letters, sending letters through post office.
With this new device, it will cut down the amount of time he travels from Tari to Mount Hagen in the Western Highlands province to send reports through the mail.
Places like Hela, we've been out of communication for many years, as I have experienced. And communication has been a major setback in our operation as Hela Food Center since 2003. It makes the job easier for us coordinators to communicate directly and effectively.
While some centers may be more advanced than others in terms of better mobile coverage, the coordinators are excited to use the new devices as a communication tool. Thekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
12 health workers and 8 elementary teachers have completed a course to upgrade their skills at the Kokoda Flexible Open and Distance Education College in Northern Province. Under this joint partnership between the Papua New Guinea and Australian governments, Kokoda Track Foundation had distributed Android tablets to the 20 participants. This will allow them to work remotely from their homes. Participants have expressed their gratitude for this program, saying they're helping them in their roles as teachers and health workers. More than 700 students from the St. Martin's Catholic Primary School in Leh were sent home today because water supply into the school was shut. This is due to the non-payment of outstanding water bills. According to head teacher Sakale Popen, the school was not able to pay for the bills because they have not received their second quarter of tuition fee-free funding. The government schools throughout the country have almost 3 weeks left before they close for the term 2 holidays.
These are students at the St. Martin's Primary School. This morning, they were forced to go back home. The school's water supply was cut off due to non-payment of bills.
We have not received any component of it.
The school's head teacher, Sakale Poppen, says the school has no money to pay the water bill because they haven't received their second quarter TFF payment. The Catholic Diocese, which is the school's agency, will step in and meet the outstanding bill. However, the school will repay the agency once they receive their tuition fee-free funds.
Normally, we get around about 11 to 14,000 per year, but it depends to the cash flow in the country. If the cash flow is okay, it goes a bit up. Otherwise, it is between 10, 11, and 13. Unfortunately, this time around, we have not received anything.
The PNG government's tuition fee-free policy was introduced by the O'Neill-led government. The delays of the TFF payments have affected the school's operation. EMTV News in Leh was trying to get a clarification from the Leh District Education Manager with schools missing out on TFF payments when we met this elementary school teacher who told us that they are still waiting for the TFF payments for second quarter.
We can ask him so we can close early or make one because no got funds small or running school.
We met with the education manager Kaumulaga at the Leh District Office.
When TFF is delayed, what's your current situation now?
Boss, I am ready.
He called the head teachers of 10 primary schools in Leh and asked them if they had received their TFF payments. In Leh District, there are 65 elementary schools, 22 primary schools, 4 secondary schools, 1 technical secondary school, and 2 vocational training institutions.
Parents are not even paying any parental support fee, and I don't know.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, goodbye.
Some teachers told Mr. Laga that their school cannot operate to the end of term 2, whilst others begged the education manager to do something quickly so they can be paid the TFF money.
The situation is worse than last couple of years ago in regard to this TFF policy. Because now many schools were visited, even I called them through the mobile. and they all have the same response that their financial account is in red.
According to the district's education manager, almost 37,000 students will stay out of school if the TFF payments are not paid to the schools on time.
The TFF policy is a failed policy. The schools, parents, public are now relying on government to subsidize fees for all the students, and that is making very, very difficult for the school to continue to operate. When such delay occurred, it affected operation, and the bottom line is children's education, which they are the benefit of this policy, badly affected.
Julie Badui Owa, National EMTV News, Ley.
A deacon from the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Manus, who was charged with 2 counts of sexual penetration, appeared before the Lorengau District Court today. 55-year-old George Maki from Ray Village in the Balopa LLG was accused of sexually touching a 12-year-old girl before sexually assaulting her. Police allege the incidents occurred between February 2014 and April 2019. Meanwhile, an expatriate in Manus who was also charged for sexual touching had his case mentioned before the Lorengau District Court. Identified as Teddy Shane Geddes, his case was adjourned to June the 17th. Both matters were heard by Senior Provincial Magistrate Ben Koma. Here with National EMTV News, we go for another break. When we come back, we take a look at stories making headlines overseas. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas now, Italian officials have long warned about the dangers of overcrowding in the famed canals in Venice. Now there are renewed calls to do something about it after a harrowing incident involving a cruise ship.
Sirens blared as the massive cruise ship ploughed into the dock, also colliding with a tourist boat. One bystander describing it as a scene from a disaster movie. People on the Venice dock fled as the MSC Opera rammed into the San Basilio terminal on Sunday morning. A terrifying scene on the Giudecca Canal, one of the busiest in the city. 4 people were left injured in the Italian city frequented by so many tourists.
It is a shameful situation. It's bad luck. They were lucky. It could have been much worse.
MSC Cruises, the cruise ship operator, said in a statement the ship experienced a technical issue as it headed for the terminal for mooring, and they're investigating the exact cause. But the incident highlights the long-standing problem of traffic caused by large ships in crowded Venice canals. The country's Environment Minister, Sergio Costa, also drew attention to the issue, saying cruise ships should not sail down the Giudecca.
It is probably a thing that had to happen. I hope nobody is injured or dead. That's to be expected. We did see it coming.
Locals say they hope Sunday's events will push authorities to address the issue of canal overcrowding and avoid a potentially worse outcome in the future.
It is a problem, but half of the city earns money thanks to these cruise ships. Before, they said they will send them away, slowly. Now this is going to happen. They're going to do it immediately, that's all.
The local port authority tells CNN it is aware of the congestion problem and it will look into a solution.
Days after 12 people were killed in a workplace shooting in the U.S. state of Virginia, a gunman's colleagues remain shocked. Many of them say the shooter was not somebody that they expected to be violent. They remember him as a nice person before the rampage.
Dwayne was a very nice person. He was quiet. He was non-assuming. He was pleasant to be around. And when I last saw him, which was just before this incident happened, he wished me to have a good weekend. The whole department up there is very close. We have a lot of celebrations together, and we all celebrate victories for each other. There was absolutely no sign. Even when I talked to him just before it happened, there was no sign that this was going to happen.
The gunman, a 40-year-old city engineer, was killed in a shootout with police. Investigators are trying to find out all they can about him and why he did this. CNN's Miguel Marquez has the latest.
What may be most disturbing about this situation is that we don't understand yet what the motive was or is. We know that he tendered his resignation by email the morning that this horrific shooting took place. That the city manager is saying that he was in good standing with his department, that there were no disciplinary actions pending against him, that there was no sign of this. Friends, colleagues, everyone that CNN has spoken to, every account that I've seen from other reporters was that he was a quiet, unassuming, nice guy. And now a growing memorial, one of a couple around town that is just growing bigger and bigger. People remain in the hospital, critically injured from this shooting. The police chief went into more detail about what happened when the detectives who heard about this went in to confront him.
As the suspect was firing, he was moving. They were returning fire, and at one point, the suspect was firing through the door and through the wall at the officers, and then the firing stopped. They eventually breached the door. And when they breached the door, suspect was then alive and was taken into custody, and first aid was immediately rendered to him.
This memorial has been growing now for some time. There are now 12 crosses. There are names of each of the victims, their pictures, and people are signing the crosses. People coming here for a little bit of connection, essentially, dropping off flowers, taking a knee, saying a prayer, and hoping that this community can get beyond this. Virginia Beach, Virginia, now on the grim list of U.S. cities that have suffered this sort of violence.
As U.S. President Donald Trump flies to Great Britain for a state visit, there are a number of rules to follow when meeting members of the royal family, and they can baffle commoners as well as heads of state. CNN looks back at some awkward moments.
We met with the Queen, who is absolutely a terrific person.
There's one last thing that I should mention that I love about Great Britain, and that is the Queen. And so I'm very much looking forward to...
It is my honor to offer toast to Your Majesty, Head of the Commonwealth and Queen of Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister of Canada, for making me feel so old.
Meeting the Queen. A moment that's memorable for most. There's a clear royal etiquette to follow when you're introduced.
A man would make a dignified short bow. A lady has the option of curtsying. If the Queen proffers her hand, you should take it, but you should not initiate contact.
However, these rules often get lost in the moment. This woman, Alice Fraser, made headlines in 1991 when she hugged Her Majesty during a trip to Washington, D.C. But politicians and celebrities are amongst the worst offenders. In 1992, Australian Prime Minister Paul Keating put his arm around the woman who is his head of state. In 2007, Hollywood royalty Mickey Rooney kissed her hand. Queen Maxima of the Netherlands also went for a kiss. Whilst the Queen of Fashion, Vogue's Anna Wintour, caused a stir when she didn't remove her glasses. And then there are the US presidents. Poor timing by President Obama led to this awkward musical miscue.
To the vitality of the special relationship between our peoples, and, in the words of Shakespeare, to this blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England, to the Queen.
Michelle touching the sovereign. George W. even winked at her. And then this, who goes first? The world awaits the next US state visit.
Here with National MTV News this Monday, we go for a break. When we come back, some sporting updates in Trukai Sports.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. We begin with Rugby League, and the Port Moresby Rugby Football League is setting the standard for the women's game. Since the inception of the Oil Search PNG Orchids in 2017, a majority of the women in the team have been from the Port Moresby RFL.
It is good to see the Women's Rugby League game in Port Moresby growing. It is one of the most consistent competitions, the Port Moresby Rugby Football League, that is setting the standard for the women's game. There are 10 teams taking part in the competition this year, and the competition is always competitive for these women. Sammy Rice Jackson is one of the most successful women's coaches in Port Moresby Rugby Football League, and his statistics are impressive.
Yeah, my coaching successes, I think the past 8 years, it's 4 grand final appearances, 2 back-to-back wins, and unfortunately 2 losses, and but still working. Grand final tastes a lot better, so I still want to see some more, yeah.
For the growth of the game, Sammy, who has been coaching since 2010, has seen a significant growth and is proud of his part in it, and is not ashamed to beat his chest about it as well.
A lot of improvement, a lot of growth, and actually while working, I started coaching in 2010 actually with Royals Rugby League Club. That one time was in Bomana off season. We were playing there, and it was really hard to get women to play a men's football, but some of us, we worked hard and came to this date right now as we speak. The women's level it's off the ground right now, and it's at the highest level, and I think I'm sitting back and banging on my chest like King Kong now. I'm just talking about the experiences and the achievements actually. Yeah.
The competition is also monitored closely by one of POM RFL's long-time supporters, David Silver, who is a match coordinator at POM RFL. In his position, he has seen the majority of women playing in the league, making it into the national women's team, the Oil Search PNG Orchids.
With the facilities around here and what's the coaching people around here, Port Moresby seems to be doing well, and the majority Orchids come from there.
This year has the Pacific Games, and the first time a women's Nines rugby league team will be attending. And Silver says most of them are from the Port Moresby Rugby Football League.
That we are not certain of right now. We have to see. We only do head counts when they come in for training, and looks like it's a majority. But there's other women also been included, I believe. And the more it comes with, and we put the teams together, then we will, certainly go ahead with it.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV Sports.
PNG Professional Boxing launched its poster last week for a first ever international boxing showdown in Port Moresby. The event, for the first time, will see 2 international fighters from Indonesia take on 2 of PNG's professional fighters. This will take place on June the 30th. President Elwin Wafewa says the aim of the event is to promote professional boxing in PNG.
For the first time this year, PNG Professional Boxing will host an international fight between PNG and Indonesia with the aim to not only expose PNG talents but also to promote the sport of professional boxing in PNG. The event, after deferred 3 times due to financial constraints, is finally set to take place on the 30th of June 2019 at the Sejongais Indoor Stadium.
We have 2 fighters from Indonesia. One will be fighting for bantamweight kilogram, is 54 division. Another one will be in lightweight division. So we have 2 challenges from Indonesia and PNG.
2 fighters taking on the Indonesian fighters are Junior Raka and Jimmy Payus, fighting in their respective weight category.
From PNG we have Junior Raka, will be fighting for 60 kilograms, lightweight division, and Jimmy Payus will be fighting for bantamweight kilogram, 54.
tournament will be refereed by an international ref, Brett Vocali, who has been around for nearly 3 decades.
Before the main bouts, we should have 3 supporting bouts. The 3 supporting bouts will be our amateur fighters and other professional fighters to exhibition. And then after that, we will have the main event between Jimmy Pais and Rafael Damera, and then we have Junior Raka and his opponent.
Alwyn says not only is PNG witnessing the showdown, but special guest from Australia, Anthony Mundine, who's a former Australian champion and 3-time world champion, will be accompanied by his father, Tony Mundine, a 4-time former Australian champion and British Empire champion.
Inviting the legend, Tony Mundine, the father to Anthony Mundine. Both of them will be here only to overseeing the event and help us to market.
Tickets to the event are selling at 3,000 Kina ringside table for 10, 50 Kina outer ringside, and outside stands going for 20 Kina. Tickets can be purchased at all Trophy House outlets in Port Moresby. Godwin Eki, National EMTV Sports.
3-time world kickboxing champion Jonathan Tuhu is encouraging young sportsmen and women to take up mixed martial arts. He says the sport of mixed martial arts teaches discipline and respect.
I think me and Tosam, the kickboxing is done a lot in PNG and throughout the world too. In kickboxing and Muay Thai martial arts sports is the really disciplined sports, and it can direct you in good path, and I think I can make him become a good man, the side, the community and the family. So me encourage him all youths who stop around the Port Moresby can join him any sports, even kickboxing, rugby, all sports is disciplined sports. But martial arts is a very strict disciplined sports. You start martial arts and you are strict, really strict, because training below martial arts, lo kickboxing and in training, out training. You one-on-one but fight the ring. So I think me encourage all youths must take part at least kickboxing and other martial arts sports in Papua New Guinea, because it can boost your health and discipline and direct you in good path in life.
Stay tuned, we'll have more of Trukai Sports after these messages.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. 2 Rugby Sevens and the Fiji Seven Stars have added a 4th World Series to their collection, comfortably beating New Zealand 35-24 in the final in Paris.
With the series already in the bag, the Fijians played under no pressure at all, and it showed, running in 4 tries before half-time.
New Zealand number up well on that far side, and Balapa, though, has some filthy feet. That might be the killer blow delivered.
A few consolation tries, not enough to close the gap. For the 5th straight year, there's no Kiwis in the dream team for the World Sevens Series, with Fiji and runners-up the United States sharing all 7 spots. The All Blacks final foundation camp has been held today in Christchurch. While blindside flanker Liam Squire was absent, he'll make his long-awaited return this weekend for the Highlanders.
We've given him the opportunity to get himself prepared, like he's been out of the environment for such a long time, so we felt better to let him go. So short answer is he's playing Friday night.
Steve Hansen was also backing Crusaders lock Scott Barrett to act as blindside cover this test season.
He can play lock 6. He's done that for us against South Africa. He came on in that game, he came on in the England game and played well.
The extended squad for the Rugby Championship will be confirmed next month.
And it looks like just a few centimetres could have robbed New Zealand from making history at a men's FIFA Football World Cup. The junior All Whites today have been beaten by Colombia on penalties in the knockout round of the Under-20s Cup. The heartbreaking loss comes on the back of a controversial official's call.
It looked to be a save that put New Zealand on the brink of football fantasy.
And 3 saves out of 3 by Michael Vowd. Well, he is going to hit the headlines tomorrow.
That headline, though, would be because of a refereeing decision denying Michael Wood his heroics.
As the referee ruled here, that Pereira will take a another one.
He had. Wood's third straight save to start the penalty shootout cruelly erased, with the Kiwi judge to have come off his line early. It's a call that's literally a matter of centimetres, the goalkeeper needing to keep both feet on the line until the ball is kicked. And while it rarely gets called, this time the assistant referee intervened. He couldn't make the same save again, and from there Colombia went on to break Kiwi hearts.
And the save is made. Colombia will be going into the last 8, and it's New Zealand who are dejected.
It's a horrible way to exit the tournament, especially when you're that close to creating that history. But I couldn't be prouder of every single one of them.
It's a heartbreak for a team that's matched and beaten more fancied sides during the tournament, even today having to come back from conceding an early goal.
Yes, they can, and the header is into the net.
And even when they did that, they responded in quite silky fashion.
Driven across, goal! New Zealand level!
It would end 1-1 and head to the dreaded penalties, where despite Wood's efforts, New Zealand made some crucial errors. Their coach, though, holding his head high.
The way that they've just played, they've shown that New Zealand players can compete, and not just compete, but win on the world stage, and I'm so proud of what they've achieved.
An achievement just centimetres away from turning into euphoria.
And that ends Sugar Sports for this evening. Up next, the weather details for the next 24 hours.
Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
A look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours in the southern region. Mostly fine for Port Moresby. A shower or two in Darrow and Alota. Rain and cloudy weather for Kerma and Popondetta. To the Momase region, cloudy weather and some showers expected in Ley and Luau. Cloudy weather and rain in Madang and Wewak. Rain and thunderstorms expected in Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands region, rain and thunderstorms expected in Lorengau and Kimbe. A shower or two in Kokopo, Rabaul and Kavieng. And fine weather in Buka. And in the Highlands region, all the major centres, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabek can all expect rain drizzles with early morning fog developing.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
And that's the news, sport and weather for today, Monday the 3rd of June 2019. On behalf of the entire MTV News team, pleasant viewing. Good night.